The champagne bubbles felt like tiny accusations against my tongue. Each sip was a performance, each smile a carefully rehearsed lie. I stood in the grand ballroom of the Windsor estate, surrounded by Chicago's elite, wearing a dress that cost more than most people earned in a month and felt absolutely nothing. My engagement party. That's what tonight was supposed to be. A celebration of my impending marriage to Marcus Rothwell, third son of the Rothwell banking dynasty, a man chosen by my father for his connections, his wealth, his complete and utter inability to inspire any emotion in me whatsoever. "Darling, you look pale." My mother appeared at my elbow, her perfectly manicured hand settling on my bare shoulder with the warmth of ice. "Smile more. People are watching. People were always watching." That was the curse of being Rebecca Windsor, daughter of Thomas Windsor, whose import business was as legitimate as it was lucrative, and whose other business interests were spoken of only in whispers. I'd grown up knowing that every action, every word, every expression was being evaluated, judged, catalogued for future use. "I need air," I said quietly, already moving toward the terrace doors before she could object. "Rebecca." But I was gone, slipping through the crowd with practiced ease, nodding at familiar faces without really seeing them. Marcus was somewhere in this sea of designer suits and false smiles, probably discussing quarterly projections with someone's father. He wouldn't miss me. He never did. The October air hit my face like a slap, cold and sharp and real. I gulped it down greedily, my hands gripping the marble balustrade as I stared out at the manicured gardens below. Fairy lights had been strung through the trees for tonight's celebration, turning the carefully cultivated wilderness into something almost magical. Almost. I should go back inside. Good girls didn't abandon their own engagement parties. Good girls smiled and thanked guests for their generous gifts, and pretended that marrying a man they barely knew was the fulfillment of every dream they'd never been allowed to have. But maybe I wasn't a good girl. Maybe that was the problem. My feet carried me down the stone steps before I could talk myself out of it, the silk of my burgundy gown whispering against my legs as I descended into the garden. The music from the ballroom faded to a distant hum, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves and the gentle splash of the fountain at the garden's center. I walked without direction, letting my feet choose the path, until I found myself in the rose garden at the far end of the estate. This late in the season, most of the blooms were gone, but a few late bloomers clung stubbornly to their stems, defiant against the approaching winter. "Running away from your own party?" The voice came from the shadows near the garden wall, deep and rough like whiskey over gravel, with the faintest trace of an Italian accent softening certain consonants. I should have been frightened. A strange man's voice in the dark, when I was alone and vulnerable. But instead, I felt something else entirely. Curiosity, maybe, or relief at finding someone who wasn't part of the carefully orchestrated performance inside. "Maybe," I admitted, peering into the darkness, but unable to make out more than a silhouette. "Are you going to tell on me?" A low chuckle, rich with amusement. "Your secret's safe with me, princess." The endearment should have offended me. Instead, it made me smile for the first time all evening. "I'm not a princess." "No?" He shifted in the shadows, but didn't step into the light. Could have fooled me. The dress, the party, the perfect hair and makeup. You look every inch the fairy tale. Fairy tales are lies we tell children to make them believe the world is kind. The words escaped before I could stop them. Too honest. Too raw. "Sorry. That was true," he finished. "Don't apologize for honesty. It's rarer than you'd think, especially in your world." "My world," I repeated, moving closer to the wall where he stood hidden. "You say that like you're not part of it." "I'm just the help, princess. I don't count." Something about the way he said it made me doubt the statement, but I didn't press. Instead, I sank onto a stone bench nearby, my dress pooling around me like spilled wine. "What are you doing out here?" Shouldn't you be? I don't know. Whatever help does at parties like this. Taking a break from being invisible. His voice held a smile I couldn't see. It gets exhausting, being looked through all night. I know that feeling, I said softly. Being looked at but never seen. It's like existing behind glass. Everyone can observe you, but no one can really touch you. That sounds lonely. It is. The admission hurt to speak aloud. But that's what we're trained for, isn't it? People like me. We're decorative objects, meant to be admired from a distance, never actually known. People like you, he echoed. And what kind of people is that? I laughed, bitter and sharp. The ones who get sold to the highest bidder wrapped in white silk and called a bride. Silence fell between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. He was thinking. I could sense it, weighing his words before speaking. When he finally did, his voice was softer, almost gentle. The man inside, the one you're promised to, you don't love him. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. I don't know him well enough to love him. We've had dinner exactly 4 times. We've never been alone together. I couldn't tell you his favorite color or what makes him laugh or whether he has nightmares. I paused, something breaking loose in my chest. I don't think anyone has ever asked me those things either. What's your favorite color? The question caught me off guard. What? Your favorite color, he repeated patiently. It's a simple question, Princess. What color makes you happy when you see it? I stared into the shadows where he hid, this stranger who asked questions no one had ever bothered with. Deep blue, I said finally, like the ocean at twilight, when you can't quite tell where the water ends and the sky begins. It makes me feel like anything is possible, like I could just dissolve into that blue and become something formless and free. That's beautiful. His voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. And sad. Most beautiful things are, I replied. What about you? What's your favorite color? Green. The answer came quickly. Not the bright green of spring, but deeper, like emeralds or forest shadows. The kind of green that holds secrets. That suits you, I said, surprising myself with the observation. Mysterious stranger in the dark, holding your secrets close. We all have secrets, Princess. Some of us are just better at hiding them. I wanted to ask what secrets he kept. Wanted to know everything about this man whose face I couldn't see, but whose voice wrapped around me like velvet. Instead, I asked, what makes you laugh? Another pause, longer this time. Honesty, he said finally. When people drop their masks and say exactly what they're thinking, consequences be damned. It's so rare that when it happens, I can't help but appreciate it. Even if the honesty is ugly? Especially then. Pretty lies are easy. Ugly truths take courage. I pulled my knees up to my chest, uncaring that it was unladylike, that my mother would have had a fit if she could see me. I hate my life, I said, testing the waters of ugly truth. I hate the parties and the expectations and the complete lack of choice in anything that matters. I hate that I'm 24 years old and I've never made a single decision for myself. I hate that I know exactly how the rest of my life will play out, year after year after year, until I die having never really lived at all. Then change it. I laughed, the sound harsh and broken. It's not that simple. Why not? Because... I stopped, realizing I didn't have a good answer. Because my parents expected it? Because that's how things were done? Because I was afraid? Because I don't know how, I admitted finally. I've been trained my whole life to be this perfect, obedient daughter. I don't know how to be anything else. You're being something else right now. His voice was warm with approval. You're being real. Only because you can't see me. I gestured at the darkness between us. Only because this doesn't count. Tomorrow I'll go back to being Rebecca Windsor. Perfect daughter. Perfect bride-to-be. Tonight is just a break from the performance. What if it didn't have to be? What do you mean? He shifted in the shadows, and I caught a glimpse of broad shoulders, of height that suggested power. What if you could choose? Not tomorrow, not in some distant future, but right now. If you could walk away from all of it, the engagement, the expectations, the life you hate, would you? My heart hammered against my ribs. That's not a real choice. Humor me. Would you? I thought about Marcus, about the cold efficiency of our courtship, about a future of separate bedrooms and polite conversations and slow suffocation. I thought about my parents, about disappointing them, about the consequences of defiance, and I thought about freedom, about making my own choices, about living instead of existing. Yes, I whispered. God help me, yes. Then remember that feeling, princess. Hold on to it, because one day you might need it. Before I could ask what he meant, voices drifted from the house, calling my name. My mother, probably, realizing I'd been gone too long. I have to go, I said, rising reluctantly from the bench. They'll come looking for me. Rebecca. My name in his mouth sounded different, weighted with meaning I couldn't decode. Do you believe in fate? I don't know, I answered honestly. Why? Because I think we were meant to meet tonight. I think this conversation mattered. And I think we'll see each other again. You sound very certain for someone whose face I've never even seen. Some things you know without seeing. His voice was soft, almost tender. Go back to your party, princess. Play your part. But don't forget what you told me tonight. Don't forget that you want more than this. I won't, I promised, meaning it with every fiber of my being. Thank you. For listening. For asking. For seeing me. You're easy to see, Rebecca Windsor. The question is whether anyone else is bothering to look. I turned to go, then hesitated. Will I really see you again? Count on it. The certainty in his voice sent shivers down my spine, but I didn't have time to analyze it. My mother's voice was getting closer, edged with irritation. I hurried back toward the house, my mind spinning with the conversation, with the stranger in the shadows, with the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in the careful architecture of my life. I didn't know his name, didn't know his face. Knew nothing about him except that he'd asked me questions no one else had ever cared to ask, and he'd listened to my answers like they mattered. It was the most intimate conversation I'd ever had, and I had no idea I'd been talking to William Bellini, heir to the most powerful Mafia family in Chicago. The man who would, in less than a week, walk into my father's office and demand my hand in marriage. The man who would challenge my fiancé to a duel for the right to claim me. The man who would upend my entire world and make me question everything I thought I knew about duty, choice, and the terrifying freedom of being truly seen. But that night, standing in my parents' garden with the taste of champagne still on my tongue and the echo of a stranger's voice in my ears, I knew only one thing with absolute certainty. I would never forget the man in the shadows who'd called me princess and made me want to be brave. 3 days after my engagement party, I still couldn't stop thinking about the stranger in the garden. His voice haunted my quiet moments, that rough whiskey timbre asking questions that had burrowed under my skin and refused to let go. What's your favorite color? Would you walk away if you could? I was in my father's study, supposedly reviewing seating charts for the wedding that was now only 6 weeks away when everything changed. Rebecca, join us. My father's voice was tight, controlled in a way that meant he was either very angry or very nervous. I looked up from the meaningless diagrams to find him standing with 3 men I'd never seen before. No, That wasn't quite right. I'd never seen two of them before. The third stood with his back to me, broad shoulders filling out a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car. Dark hair styled in a way that suggested both wealth and careful attention to appearance. Something about his posture made my breath catch. "Gentlemen, my daughter Rebecca." My father's hand trembled slightly as he gestured toward me. Thomas Windsor never trembled. "Rebecca, this is Marco Bellini and his associates. They've come to discuss a business matter." The man with his back to me turned, and the world tilted on its axis. I knew that face. Not from seeing it, but from 1,000 romance novels and films, from every fantasy I'd never allowed myself to have. Strong jaw shadowed with deliberate stubble, a nose that had been broken at least once and reset with care, lips that curved into a knowing smile as he watched recognition dawn in my eyes. But it was his eyes that destroyed me. Deep green, like emeralds or forest shadows, the kind of green that holds secrets. "Miss Windsor." His voice was that same rough whiskey, and hearing it attached to this face, this body, this presence that filled my father's study like smoke, made my knees weak. "A pleasure to finally meet you properly." Finally, as if we'd met before, as if he knew. Oh God, the garden, the shadows, the stranger who'd asked about my favorite color. "Mr. Bellini." I forced my voice to stay steady, even as my heart hammered against my ribs. "What brings you to my father's home?" "Business, as your father said." He moved closer, each step deliberate, predatory. "Though I prefer to think of it as pleasure. The best business always is, don't you think?" My father cleared his throat. "Mr. Bellini has made a rather unusual proposal." "Has he?" I couldn't look away from those green eyes, couldn't stop cataloging details I'd been denied in the darkness. The way his suit jacket fit perfectly across his shoulders, the platinum watch on his wrist that probably cost 6 figures, the small scar above his left eyebrow that suggested a violent past carefully hidden beneath expensive tailoring. "He wants to marry you." The words came from the older man, Marco Bellini, who I now realized must be William's father. His voice was weaker than his son's, roughened by illness or age or both. A union between our families would be beneficial. I laughed. I couldn't help it. The sound came out sharp and slightly hysterical. "I'm already engaged, as you may have noticed at my engagement party 3 days ago, the party you apparently attended without my knowledge." I was there. William's smile widened, showing teeth that were too perfect, too white, like a wolf's. "I found the gardens particularly memorable." Heat flooded my cheeks as the implication settled over the room. He'd been there. He'd sought me out deliberately, hidden in the shadows, learned me while remaining unknown. The calculation of it should have angered me. Instead, I felt something else entirely. Something dangerous and thrilling and completely inappropriate. "My daughter is promised to Marcus Rothwell," my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. "The contracts are already drawn up. The wedding is in 6 weeks. Contracts can be renegotiated." Marco Bellini's voice was soft, but carried absolute authority. "The Rothwells are businessmen, Thomas. They understand the value of a better offer." "And what exactly are you offering?" I asked, finding my voice at last. "Besides disruption and scandal?" William stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive with notes of cedar and tobacco. "Protection," he said quietly. "Power. A partnership that would elevate your father's business interests beyond anything the Rothwells could provide. And you, Rebecca." My name in his mouth made me shiver. "You would have everything you've ever wanted." "You don't know what I want." "Don't I?" His eyes held mine, challenging. Deep blue like the ocean at twilight. Freedom that feels like dissolving into something formless and infinite. A life where you make your own choices, instead of having them made for you. My father's sharp intake of breath told me he'd caught the implication. You spoke with my daughter at the party? Briefly. William's gaze never left mine. She made quite an impression. This is inappropriate, I said, but my protest sounded weak even to my own ears. You can't just walk into someone's home and propose marriage because you had a conversation in a garden. I can do exactly that. The certainty in his voice was absolute. I'm William Bellini, Rebecca. When I want something, I take it. And I want you. The raw honesty of it stole my breath. No pretty words about love or destiny, just want, pure and uncomplicated and terrifying in its intensity. My daughter has already made her choice. My father tried, but Marco Bellini cut him off with a raised hand. Has she? The old man's eyes, the same green as his son's but faded with time, studied me carefully. Miss Windsor, if you could choose freely, without consideration for contracts or expectations or family obligation, would you choose Marcus Rothwell? That's not, I started. Answer the question, William said softly. Would you choose him? I looked at my father, at his pale face and trembling hands. I thought about Marcus, about our 4 formal dinners and complete lack of chemistry, about a lifetime of separate bedrooms and polite distance and slow suffocation. And I thought about the stranger in the garden who'd asked me questions no one else cared to know the answers to. No, I whispered. I wouldn't choose him. Rebecca. My father's voice was sharp with shock, but William smiled, and it transformed his face from handsome to devastating. Then choose me instead. I don't know you. You know me better than you know Rothwell. He moved closer still, until only inches separated us. You know what matters. You know I listen. You know I see you when others look through you. You know that when I ask what makes you happy, I actually care about the answer. That's not enough to base a marriage on, isn't it? His hand came up, fingers brushing my jawline with shocking gentleness. Rothwell will give you wealth and status and absolute indifference. I'll give you wealth and status and my complete, undivided attention. Every day, Rebecca. For the rest of our lives. This is insane, I breathed. But I didn't pull away from his touch. Sometimes the best things are. His thumb traced across my cheekbone. Your father will agree to this arrangement because the Bellini family's protection is worth more than the Rothwell's banking connections. Marcus will agree because he's a businessman who recognizes when he's been outbid. The only question that matters is whether you'll agree. And if I don't? Something flickered in his eyes, not anger, but something deeper, more complicated. Then I'll walk away. I don't force women, Rebecca, no matter how much I want them. He paused, his voice dropping lower. But I think you want this too. I think you've been waiting your whole life for someone to ask you to be brave. So I'm asking. Be brave with me. The room held its breath. My father frozen in shock. Marco Bellini watching with calculating interest, the 2 associates standing silent witness to this impossible moment. I need time, I managed, to think. You have until tomorrow. William stepped back, the loss of his warmth like a physical ache. My father and I will return at noon. If you choose me, wear blue. If you choose Rothwell, wear anything else. Either way, you'll have made your choice freely. That's all I'm asking for. They left as suddenly as they'd arrived, leaving my father and me alone in the study's heavy silence. Do you have any idea who that man is? My father's voice shook. What he's capable of. Tell me, I said, sinking into a chair. And he did. He told me about the Bellini family's empire, built over 3 generations on a foundation of violence and loyalty and iron control. He told me about William's reputation as his father's enforcer, brilliant and ruthless, and absolutely without mercy when crossed. He told me about the bodies rumored to have disappeared at William's orders. The businesses ruined. The enemies crushed. He painted a picture of a monster in a beautiful suit. "And you do business with them," I said when he'd finished. "You, with all your lectures about respectability and propriety. You take money from the Mafia." My father had the grace to look ashamed. "Everyone does. It's how this city works." "Then what's one more compromise?" I rose, suddenly exhausted. "What's one more deal made in back rooms by men who think they own the world?" "Rebecca, tomorrow at noon, you'll have your answer." I walked to the door, then paused. "Tell me one thing, Father. Honestly. Would marrying William Bellini be worse for me than marrying Marcus Rothwell?" He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, "I don't know. Rothwell is safe. Boring, but safe. Bellini is dangerous," I finished. "But at least he sees me." That night, I lay awake staring at my ceiling, replaying every word of our garden conversation with new context. He'd known who I was, had probably known everything about me, my schedule, my habits, my engagement. He'd chosen that moment in the garden deliberately, hidden his identity, learned me while staying unknown. The manipulation of it should have made me furious. Instead, I felt something else. He could have approached me directly, used his family's power to force the arrangement. He could have treated me like a transaction, the way Marcus did. But he'd given me a choice. More choice than anyone else ever had. Wear blue tomorrow and become Mrs. William Bellini. Step into a world of danger and power, and a man who claimed to want me with frightening intensity. Or wear anything else, and marry Marcus Rothwell. Safe, respectable, utterly soul-crushing Marcus Rothwell. I thought about my favorite color. Deep blue, like the ocean at twilight, like freedom and possibility and everything I'd never been allowed to want. I thought about William's eyes, green like emeralds, like forest shadows, like secrets and danger and devastating attention focused entirely on me. And I knew, with bone-deep certainty, what color I'd be wearing when he returned at noon. I chose the dress with care. Deep sapphire blue, that fell in soft waves to just above my knees, modest enough for a noon meeting, but elegant enough to announce that this was a deliberate choice, not a casual decision. The silk was cool against my skin as I dressed, my hands steady, despite the enormity of what I was about to do. My mother found me as I was fastening a simple pearl necklace, my grandmother's, the only jewelry I owned that wasn't a gift from my father's business associates or Marcus's efficient sense of obligation. "Blue," she said flatly, standing in my doorway. "Your father told me what happened yesterday, what that man offered, and you're actually considering it." "I've considered it," I corrected, turning to face her. "And I've decided." "Rebecca, do you understand what you're throwing away? The Rothwell name, the stability, the respectability, the lovelessness," I interrupted. "The certain knowledge that I'll spend the next 50 years being tolerated rather than wanted?" "Yes, Mother. I understand exactly what I'm throwing away. William Bellini is dangerous." She moved closer, her perfectly manicured hands gripping my shoulders. "He's not like us, Rebecca. His family, what they do is exactly what Father's been profiting from for years. Don't pretend we have moral high ground here." She flinched as though I'd slapped her. "That's different. Is it? Or is it just more palatable when we're the ones taking the money instead of making it?" "You don't know what you're getting into." I met her eyes steadily. "Neither did you when you married Father. Isn't that what you told me once? That marriage is always a gamble? That you learn the man after you've already committed? That's not. At least William has been honest about who he is. He's not pretending to be something he's not. And he's asked me what I want. When was the last time anyone in this family did that? Silence fell between us, weighted with 24 years of carefully curated distance. My mother and I had never been close. She'd trained me, shaped me, molded me into the perfect society daughter. But she'd never asked me what I dreamed about, never wondered if I was happy. "Wear whatever you want," she said finally, her voice brittle. "Make whatever choice you think is best. But don't come crying to me when you discover what kind of man you've really married." She left, and I was alone with my reflection and my racing heart, and the certain knowledge that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't begin to predict. At precisely noon, the doorbell rang. I made them wait. Not out of cruelty, but because I needed the extra minutes to steady my breathing, to remind myself that I was choosing this, that brave was a choice I could make. When I finally descended the stairs, William was standing in the foyer with his father and their ever-present associates. He wore another perfectly tailored suit, this one navy with a crisp white shirt that emphasized his olive complexion. But it was his expression that caught me. The moment he saw the blue dress, something fierce and triumphant flashed across his face. Relief, maybe, or satisfaction, or simple male possession. Whatever it was made my pulse quicken. "Miss Windsor." His voice was carefully controlled, but his eyes burned. "You look beautiful." "Mr. Bellini." I descended the final steps, hyper-aware of his gaze tracking my every movement. "I believe we have some things to discuss." "Indeed we do." He offered his arm, the gesture courtly and old-fashioned. "Shall we speak privately?" My father started to object, but Marco Bellini stopped him with a look. "Let them talk, Thomas. Some conversations need privacy." I took William's arm, feeling the solid strength of muscle beneath the expensive fabric, and let him lead me to my father's study. The same room where he'd proposed this insane arrangement yesterday. The same room where my entire life had tilted on its axis. He closed the door behind us, then leaned against it, watching me with an intensity that made me feel exposed, and seen, and terrifyingly alive all at once. "You wore blue," he said quietly. I did. "Tell me why." I moved to the window, needing distance to think clearly. "Because you asked me to be brave. Because you're the first person who's ever bothered to ask what I want. Because—" I stopped, the truth catching in my throat. "Because?" he prompted, moving closer but not touching. "Because in that garden, in the dark, you made me feel like I mattered. Like my thoughts and dreams and desires were worth listening to. And I've spent my entire life being invisible except as a decorative object or a useful connection. I want—" My voice cracked. "I want to be seen." "I see you, Rebecca." He was behind me now, his breath warm against my neck. "I've seen you since the moment I watched you slip out of that ballroom looking like you were suffocating. I followed you into the garden because I couldn't look away, and everything you told me that night, every word, I've memorized." I turned to face him, suddenly needing to see his eyes. "Why me? You could have anyone. Why choose the daughter of one of your father's business associates? Why choose a woman who's already promised to someone else? Do you want the strategic answer or the truth?" "Both." His smile was slow, dangerous, and absolutely genuine. "Strategically, your father's import business gives us access to shipping routes we need. A marriage alliance strengthens ties that are currently just financial. It sends a message to our rivals that we're expanding, consolidating power. And the truth?" He reached out, his fingers tracing along my jawline with that same gentle possessiveness I remembered from yesterday. "The truth is that I watched you at that party for an hour before you escaped to the garden. You smiled at every guest, said all the right things, played your part perfectly. But your eyes were dead, Rebecca. Absolutely lifeless, like you'd checked out of your own life and were just going through the motions." That's a depressing observation. It got worse when I saw you with Rothwell. The way he touched your elbow like you were a business acquisition. The way you flinched, just slightly, when he leaned in to speak to you. The complete absence of any spark between you. And that made you want me? No. His thumb traced my lower lip, sending shivers down my spine. What made me want you was watching you escape. Watching you choose yourself for those few minutes in the garden. The way you came alive when you thought no one important was watching. That honesty, that hunger for something real. That's what made me want you. You barely know me. I know the things that matter. His other hand came up to frame my face, holding me gently, but firmly. I know you're brave enough to choose the unknown over comfortable misery. I know you value honesty over pretty lies. I know you want to be seen, really seen, by someone who isn't afraid of what they'll find. And I know that when I touch you like this, his thumb brushed across my cheekbone. Your breath catches, and your pupils dilate, and you lean into it even though you're trying not to. He was right. I was leaning into his touch, my body betraying every logical reason I should step away. What happens now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Now I talk to Rothwell. His voice hardened. I make it clear that the engagement is over, that you're mine, and that if he has any objections, we can settle them however he prefers. You mean you'll threaten him? I mean I'll give him the truth and let him decide how to proceed. If he's smart, he'll take the generous settlement my father's offering and walk away. If he's not, William's smile was cold. Then we'll have a different kind of conversation. And me? Do I get a say in any of this? You had your say when you wore blue. His hands dropped from my face, and I immediately missed their warmth. But if you're having second thoughts, if you want to choose Rothwell after all, say it now. Once I walk out of this room, once I set this in motion, there's no going back. I should have been terrified by the finality in his voice. Should have demanded time, demanded courting, demanded all the things a proper engagement should include. Instead, I met his eyes and said, I'm not having second thoughts. Good. He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. Then this is yours. Inside was a ring that stole my breath. An emerald-cut sapphire the color of deep ocean twilight, flanked by small diamonds that caught the light like scattered stars. It was beautiful and unusual, and absolutely perfect. Your favorite color, he said softly, sliding it onto my finger. Deep blue, like freedom and possibility, like everything you've been denied. It's beautiful, I managed, staring at the ring that announced me as his. William, I know this is fast. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles just above the ring. I know you're scared. I know you're taking a leap of faith with a man you barely know. But I promise you this, Rebecca. I will never lie to you. I will never make you feel invisible. And I will give you choices, real choices, about the life we build together. What if I make the wrong choices? Then we'll face the consequences together. His smile softened. That's what partnership means. You're not alone anymore, Tesoro. Not ever again. The Italian endearment made my heart skip. What does that mean? Tesoro? Treasure. His thumb stroked across my knuckles. Something precious that's worth protecting. Before I could respond, the door opened and my father entered, his face carefully neutral. Rothwell is here. He received your message and wants to speak with Rebecca. Absolutely not, William said immediately. She's made her choice. There's nothing to discuss. I should talk to him, I said quietly. I owe him that much. You owe him nothing. William's voice was hard. He never bothered to know you, never cared what you wanted. You don't owe him explanations or apologies or your time. Maybe not, I agreed. But I want to do this right. I want to end it cleanly, face to face, so there are no misunderstandings. William studied me for a long moment, then nodded once, sharply. Fine, but I'm staying in the room. Non-negotiable. We found Marcus in the sitting room, standing by the window with his hands in his pockets, the picture of controlled irritation. He turned when we entered, his eyes going immediately to the ring on my finger. So it's true, he said flatly. You're throwing me over for a mobster. Marcus, don't. He held up a hand. Don't apologize or explain or try to make this easier. We both know what this is. Your father made a better deal, and you're the commodity being traded. At least be honest about it. The words should have hurt, but they didn't. Because he was wrong, and that wrongness made everything clear. You're right, I said calmly. I am being honest. I'm honestly choosing William over you. Not because of deals or business arrangements, but because in one conversation with him, I felt more seen and valued than I have in months of knowing you. Marcus's jaw tightened. We could have had a good marriage, Rebecca. Comfortable, stable. We could have had a tolerable arrangement, I corrected. But I don't want tolerable anymore, Marcus. I want to be wanted. I want to be chosen for who I am, not for what connections I bring. And I'm sorry if that hurts you, but I'm not sorry for making this choice. You'll regret this. His eyes moved to William, standing silently behind me. You think he's different? He's worse, Rebecca. At least I would have given you distance, freedom. He'll consume you. Maybe, I agreed. But at least I'll feel something. Marcus stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head. You've changed. No, I said softly. I'm finally becoming who I was supposed to be all along. He left without another word, and I felt nothing but relief. That was well done, William said quietly, his hand settling on my waist. Brave and honest and absolutely devastating. I meant every word. I know. He turned me to face him, his green eyes intense. Do you have any idea how rare you are, Rebecca Windsor? How extraordinary. I'm really not. You are. His hand cupped my face. And I'm going to spend every day proving it to you until you believe it yourself. The wedding happened 3 weeks later in a private ceremony that bore no resemblance to the elaborate circus my engagement to Marcus would have required. William's family chapel, small and intimate, filled with people who actually mattered rather than business acquaintances putting on a show. I wore cream silk, simple and elegant, with my grandmother's pearls and William's sapphire ring catching the candlelight. He wore black, perfectly tailored, looking like sin and salvation, wrapped in expensive fabric. When he took my hand at the altar, his thumb traced patterns on my wrist that I was beginning to recognize as his tell. The gesture he made when he was feeling something deep, something real, something that cracked the controlled exterior he showed the world. You're shaking, he murmured, low enough that only I could hear. I'm terrified, I admitted. This is real. We're actually doing this. We are. His grip tightened, steadying me. And tomorrow morning, you'll wake up as Rebecca Bellini, my wife, my partner, mine. That word should have sounded possessive and threatening. Coming from him, it sounded like a promise. The priest spoke words about commitment and partnership, about choosing each other every day. William's responses were firm, absolute, his vows delivered with a conviction that made my heart race. When it was my turn, I looked into those forest green eyes and spoke the truth. I choose you, William Bellini. I choose this life, this partnership, this terrifying and exhilarating leap into the unknown. I choose to be seen by you, to be known by you, to build something real with you. By the power vested in me, the priest intoned, I pronounce you husband and wife. William's kiss was gentle, reverent, nothing like the consuming possession Marcus had predicted. His hands framed my face with devastating tenderness, his lips moving against mine with careful control. Mine, he breathed against my mouth. Finally, completely mine. Yours, I agreed, and felt the last piece of my old life fall away. The reception was small, held at the Bellini estate that would now be my home. The house was beautiful in a way that spoke of old money and careful taste. Marble floors, original artwork, furniture that had been in the family for generations. But it was warm too, lived in, with photographs of William's grandfather and father, with books scattered on tables, with evidence of actual life being lived, rather than just displayed. Welcome home, Mrs. Bellini, William said as we entered, his hand at the small of my back. I had your things moved here this morning. Your room is ready. My room? I turned to look at him. As in, separate from yours? Something flickered in his eyes. I assumed you'd want your own space. Privacy. We're married. But that doesn't mean I expect... He stopped, jaw tightening. You'll never owe me anything, Rebecca. Especially not that. The thoughtfulness of it, the care he was taking with my comfort even now, made my chest tight. Show me the house? I asked, instead of examining the feelings threatening to overwhelm me. He did, room by room, explaining the history of various pieces, pointing out his favorite spaces. The library where he worked late at night, the kitchen where his grandmother had taught him to make proper pasta sauce, the music room where his mother had played piano before she died. She would have liked you, he said softly, running his fingers over the keys. She always said I needed someone who wasn't afraid of me, someone who saw past the family name to the person underneath. I'm afraid of you sometimes, I admitted, when you go cold and controlled, when I remember what you're capable of. Good. He turned to face me. Fear keeps you alert, keeps you from getting careless. I don't want you blind to who I am, Tesoro. I want you to see all of it and choose me anyway. I already did, at the altar, in front of witnesses. So you did. His smile was slow, dangerous. Now we just have to figure out what that means. We ended the tour in his study, a masculine space of dark wood and leather, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. Rain had begun to fall, gentle and steady, turning the world beyond the glass into a watercolor of grays and greens. This is where I work, he said, moving to pour 2 glasses of wine. Where I make the decisions that keep my family safe and powerful. You're welcome here any time, Rebecca. Nothing I do is secret from you. I meant what I said about partnership. I accepted the wine, then moved to the window, watching rain slide down the glass. Marcus said you'd consume me, that you'd take over my life and leave nothing of me behind. Do you believe that? I don't know. I sipped the wine, rich and complex on my tongue. I think you're capable of it. I think if I let you, you'd make every decision, control every aspect, surround me with so much protection and attention that I'd disappear into it. Then don't let me. He came to stand behind me, close but not touching. Push back when I overstep. Tell me when you need space. Remind me that you're not something to be managed, but someone to be partnered with. I'll make mistakes, Rebecca. I'm used to controlling everything, used to having power and using it. You'll need to help me learn how to share it. I turned to face him, setting my glass aside. What if I don't know how? What if I've been trained so long to be obedient that I don't know how to fight for what I want? Then we learned together. His hand settled on my waist, pulling me closer. You teach me to listen. I teach you to speak up. You show me how to be gentle. I show you how to be strong. That's what partnership is. Two people learning to be better versions of themselves. You make it sound simple. It's not. It's probably the hardest thing either of us will ever do. His forehead rested against mine. But I think we can do it. I think we can build something real. I want to believe that. Then believe it. His lips brushed mine, soft and questioning. Believe me when I say I want you happy. Believe me when I say your choices matter. Believe me when I say I see you, Rebecca, and I'm not looking away. I kissed him then, properly, deeply, tasting wine and promise and possibility. His response was immediate but controlled, his hands tightening on my waist but not demanding more than I was ready to give. When we finally broke apart, both breathing harder, he smiled against my mouth. Come on. I want to show you one more thing. He led me through the house to a wing I hadn't seen yet, opening a door to reveal a room that made my breath catch. It was an artist's studio, all natural light and open space, with canvases and paints and brushes arranged with care. On the main easel was a canvas showing the garden where we'd first met, painted in shades of blue and green and shadow. You paint, I breathed, moving into the room. I did, before everything got complicated, before I had to be the heir, the enforcer, the man everyone fears. He followed me in, watching my face. This is the room where I remember who I am, when I'm not being William Bellini, future head of the family. It's beautiful. I touched the canvas gently. You're talented. I'm competent. He shrugged. But that's not the point. The point is... He paused, choosing words carefully. You're not the only one who's been invisible, Rebecca. I've just been hiding behind power instead of obedience. This room is where I stop performing, where I can be honest about what I feel instead of calculating what I should feel. And I wanted you to see it, to know that I understand what you meant about being seen. I turned to look at him fully, this complicated man who'd disrupted my entire life. Thank you for sharing this with me. There's more. He opened a closet to reveal art supplies, blank canvases, everything someone would need to paint. This is your space now too, if you want it. If you need somewhere to remember who you are beyond being my wife, beyond being Rebecca Bellini, this is it. Your room, your sanctuary, your choice. The thoughtfulness of it, the understanding, made tears prick my eyes. I don't even know if I can paint. Then find out, or write, or photograph, or just sit here and think. It doesn't matter what you do with it, Tesoro. It matters that you have it, that you have choices. I crossed to him, standing on tiptoe to kiss him properly. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. His arms came around me, solid and warm. I expected someone who needed saving, someone fragile that I'd have to protect from the world. Instead, I got someone who challenges me, questions me, makes me think about who I am and who I want to be. Is that good or bad? It's perfect, he said simply. You're perfect, and I... He stopped, something vulnerable flashing across his face. You what? I'm falling in love with you. The admission was quiet, almost hesitant. I know it's too soon. I know we barely know each other. But when I watch you being brave, being honest, being yourself despite everything, I can't help it. I'm falling, Rebecca. Hard and fast and completely. My heart stuttered, then raced. William, you don't have to say it back. His hand cupped my face. You don't have to feel anything you don't feel. I just needed you to know, needed you to understand that this isn't just about strategy or power or family alliances. You matter to me. What you think, what you feel, what you need, It all matters. I think... I paused, examining the feeling unfurling in my chest. I think I might be falling too. It scares me how quickly this happened. How much you already mean to me. But I can't deny it anymore. You see me, William. You really, truly see me. And that's... My voice cracked. That's everything I've ever wanted. He kissed me then, deep and consuming, but with an underlying gentleness that took my breath away. This was what Marcus had warned me about. William's ability to overwhelm, to possess completely. But Marcus had been wrong about one crucial thing. I wasn't being consumed. I was choosing to let William in, choosing to be vulnerable, choosing to build something real with someone who valued me for who I actually was. When he finally lifted me into his arms and carried me through the house to his bedroom, our bedroom now, it wasn't possession. It was partnership. Two people learning each other, choosing each other, building something that belonged to both of us. And later, wrapped in expensive sheets with rain still falling outside and William's heartbeat steady beneath my ear, I thought about gardens and shadows and the stranger who'd asked about my favorite color. I'd been right to wear blue, right to choose the unknown over comfortable misery, right to be brave. No regrets? William asked softly, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. None, I said, meaning it with every fiber of my being. You? Only that I didn't find you sooner. He pressed a kiss to my hair. But we have time now, Tesoro. All the time in the world to learn each other. And I believed him. The first real test of our marriage came 2 weeks later, at a family dinner I hadn't known was happening until that morning. They want to meet you properly, William explained over breakfast, his eyes watchful. My uncles, cousins, the extended family. They need to see that you're real, that this marriage is legitimate, that you're not some strategic error on my part. Strategic error, I repeated, setting down my coffee cup. That's flattering. That's reality. His hand covered mine on the table. In my world, marriages are business arrangements. Love is considered a liability. The fact that I chose you for personal reasons rather than purely strategic ones has raised questions. What kind of questions? Whether you've made me weak, whether my judgment can be trusted, whether I'm still capable of making the hard decisions that leadership requires. His voice was matter of fact, but I caught the tension in his shoulders. This dinner is them evaluating whether you're an asset or a liability to the family. The weight of it settled over me like a shroud. I wasn't just William's wife. I was a potential weakness in the armor of one of Chicago's most powerful families. One wrong word, one social misstep, and I could undermine everything he'd worked for. Hey, William rose, moving around the table to kneel beside my chair. Don't do that. Don't retreat into your head and start cataloging all the ways you might fail. You'll be fine, Tesoro. Just be yourself. Myself got me examined like a prized horse at my own engagement party, I reminded him. Myself isn't exactly impressive to people like your family. Yourself impressed me. His hand cupped my face. Yourself is brave and honest and refuses to be invisible. That's exactly what they need to see. Not some perfect society wife, but the woman I chose because she makes me better. What if I mess this up? What if they hate me? Then they hate you. He shrugged. I don't actually care what they think, Rebecca. I care what you think. I care that you feel safe and supported. But if it matters to you that they accept you, then I'll do everything I can to make that happen. I leaned into his touch, drawing strength from his certainty. It matters. Not because I need their approval, but because I don't want to make your life harder. I don't want to be the reason they question your leadership. You won't be. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. Trust me. The dinner was held at Marco Bellini's home, a mansion even larger than the estate William and I shared. By the time we arrived, the drive already lined with expensive cars, my hands were shaking despite William's steady presence beside me. "Breathe," he murmured, his thumb tracing reassuring patterns on my wrist. "Remember, you're not here to impress them. You're here because you're my wife, and that makes you family whether they like it or not." That's not particularly comforting. It should be. It means you've already won, Tesoro. Everything else is just theater. The dining room was filled with Bellinis when we entered. Uncles and aunts, cousins and their spouses, all dressed for dinner, as though this were some formal state occasion rather than a family meal. Conversation stopped abruptly as we were announced, every pair of eyes turning to assess me. I lifted my chin and met their gazes steadily, remembering every lesson my mother had drilled into me about posture and presence. I might be terrified, but I wouldn't show it. "William." Marco Bellini rose from the head of the table, looking frailer than he had at our wedding. "And the new Mrs. Bellini. Welcome." "Thank you for having us," I said, pleased when my voice came out steady. We were seated near Marco, positions of honor that weren't lost on anyone present. Throughout dinner, I felt constant evaluation, the way I used my silverware, how much I drank, what I said and didn't say. It was like being back at my parents' parties, except the stakes were infinitely higher. "So, Rebecca," one of William's uncles said midway through the meal, "your father's in imports, is that right?" "Yes. Textiles primarily, some luxury goods." "Legitimate business?" The question was pointed. "As legitimate as anything in Chicago," I replied carefully. "He's been in business for 30 years without any legal troubles." A few approving nods around the table. I'd passed the first test. "And you understand what you've married into?" another uncle asked. "The nature of our family's interests?" "I understand that William is a complex man with complicated responsibilities," I said, choosing my words with care. "I understand that family loyalty is paramount, and I understand that my role is to support my husband, not to interfere in matters that don't concern me." "Diplomatic," someone murmured. William's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. "But you must have opinions," Marco said, his green eyes, so like William's, studying me intently. "About what we do, about the choices we make." "I have opinions about many things," I agreed. "But I also have enough sense to know that my place is beside my husband, not in his business decisions. William chose me as his wife and partner, not as his conscience or his critic." "And if his business decisions put you at risk? If being married to him makes you a target?" I looked at William, at the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes had gone hard and protective. Then I looked back at Marco. "Then I trust him to keep me safe," I said simply. "That's what marriage means, doesn't it? Trust, partnership, choosing to face risks together rather than alone." Something shifted in Marco's expression. Not quite approval, but something close. "William chose well," he said finally. "Welcome to the family, Rebecca." The tension in the room eased fractionally, conversation resuming with less edge. But I knew I hadn't won everyone over. I caught calculating looks from some of the cousins, skeptical expressions from a few of the wives. I would need to prove myself, repeatedly, before they fully accepted me. After dinner, the men retired to Marco's study for business discussions that wives weren't invited to. I found myself in the drawing room with the other women, feeling distinctly out of place. "Don't look so terrified," one of them said, a beautiful brunette I vaguely remembered being introduced to as Sophia, married to William's cousin Nico. "They're not actually going to eat you." "Just evaluate me and find me wanting," I replied. She laughed. "Probably, but that's standard. You should have seen what they put me through when Nico brought me home. I'm Polish, which apparently made me deeply suspicious. It took 6 months before Marco stopped having me followed. He had you followed? Standard procedure for new additions to the family. She sipped her wine. They'll do it to you too, if they haven't already. Background checks, surveillance, making sure you're not a threat. The invasion of privacy should have angered me. Instead, I felt oddly relieved. At least it meant they were taking me seriously enough to investigate. Can I ask you something? I said quietly. How do you live with it? Knowing what they do, what they're capable of? Sophia was quiet for a moment, her expression thoughtful. I love Nico. That's the simple answer. The complicated answer is that I've learned to separate the man I married from the business he's part of. He's kind to me, devoted to our children, generous with his family. What he does to protect that family, to maintain their power. She shrugged. I've chosen not to ask too many questions. Isn't that just willful ignorance? Maybe. She met my eyes steadily. But maybe it's survival. Maybe it's the only way to love someone in this world without going insane. You'll have to find your own balance, Rebecca. Your own way of reconciling who William is to you with what he is to everyone else. Before I could respond, a commotion from the study made everyone freeze. Raised voices, something crashing, then sudden silence. The drawing room door burst open and William stood there, his expression thunderous. We're leaving, now. I rose immediately, recognizing the barely controlled fury in every line of his body. What happened? Not here. His hand closed around my wrist, not painfully but firmly, as he guided me toward the exit. Say goodnight to my father and let's go. Marco appeared in the study doorway, looking tired. William, don't be rash. Think about what's being offered. I have thought about it. William's voice was cold. And my answer is no. Absolutely not. What's going on? I asked, looking between them. Your husband is letting personal feelings cloud his judgment, Marco said. There's an opportunity to strengthen our position, but it requires certain compromises. Compromises he's refusing to make. Because they involve my wife, William snapped. Because they require using her as leverage. And I told you when I married her that she was off limits. That stands. My blood ran cold. Using me how? It doesn't matter because it's not happening. William's hand tightened on my wrist. I'm taking you home. Good night, Father. The drive back to our estate was silent. William's jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle jumping. When we finally pulled into our driveway, he sat for a long moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing carefully controlled. Tell me, I said quietly. Whatever they wanted to do, I deserve to know. He closed his eyes, then opened them, turning to face me. There's a rival family, the Castellanos. They've been making moves to undermine our territory, our businesses. My father wants to arrange a meeting, a negotiation, and he suggested, his voice went deadly soft, that bringing you would demonstrate good faith, make me seem less threatening, more reasonable. That doesn't sound so bad. They would see you as leverage to Soro, as a way to control me, and if negotiations went badly, you'd be at risk. You'd become a target, a tool to be used. His hands framed my face. I won't do it. I won't put you in danger. Not for business, not for strategy, not for anything. Even if it costs you politically? Even if it makes your family question your leadership? Even then. The certainty in his voice was absolute. You're not a playing piece, Rebecca. You're my wife. And I protect what's mine. Your father seemed to think this was important. My father is dying, William said bluntly. He's desperate to secure the family's position before he goes. And he's not thinking clearly about the costs, about what using you that way would mean, what it would open you up to. I studied his face, seeing the conflict there. He was torn between duty to family and protection of me, between strategic advantage and personal loyalty. What if I chose to do it? I asked carefully. What if I understood the risks and decided they were worth it to help you? No. The word was flat, final. I appreciate the offer, Tesoro, but no. This is where I draw the line. This is where your safety matters more than family politics. Even though it might cost you? Especially then. He leaned forward, his forehead resting against mine. Do you know what you've become to me in these few weeks? You're not just my wife. You're the first person I've ever trusted completely. The first one I've been honest with. The first one who makes me want to be better than what this family made me. I won't sacrifice that. I won't sacrifice you. Tears pricked my eyes at the raw emotion in his voice. William, I know what they're saying. That you've made me weak, that I'm compromised, that I can't be trusted to lead. Maybe they're right. Maybe caring about you, putting you first, makes me a liability. His hands tightened on my face. But I don't care. I'd rather be weak with you than powerful without you. I kissed him then, pouring everything I felt into it. Gratitude and fear, and something deeper, something that felt dangerously close to love. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine again. No more family dinners for a while, he murmured. Let them stew. Let them see that I meant what I said about protecting you. Won't that make things worse? Probably. His smile was grim. But sometimes you have to make things worse before they can get better. Sometimes you have to show people exactly where your boundaries are, even if it costs you. We went inside, and William disappeared into his study to make calls, to do damage control, to handle the fallout from his refusal. I retreated to the art studio, needing space to process everything. I'd known marrying William would be complicated, but I hadn't fully understood the costs. The way his love for me would put him at odds with his family. The way protecting me would undermine his position. I was sitting in front of a blank canvas when he found me an hour later, his tie loosened and exhaustion evident in every line of his body. Hey, he said softly, coming to sit beside me. You okay? I should be asking you that. You just defied your dying father for me. I did. He pulled me close, tucking me against his side. And I'd do it again. Every time, Tesoro. You come first. Always. What if they force you to choose? Between me and the family? Then I choose you. His voice was absolute. I know that's not what you want to hear. I know you don't want to be the reason I walk away from everything. But that's the truth, Rebecca. If it comes down to you or them, I choose you. Every single time. I turned in his arms, looking up at this complicated, dangerous, devoted man who'd disrupted my entire life. I love you, I said, the words escaping before I could think better of them. I know it's too soon. I know we're still learning each other, but I love you, William, and that terrifies me. His smile was slow, devastating. Good, he murmured, kissing me softly. Be terrified with me. Love me anyway. Choose me anyway. That's all I'm asking. Always, I promised. I choose you. Always. The challenge came 3 days later, delivered by messenger to our home while William was out handling business. A formal letter on heavy cardstock, written in elegant script that somehow made the words more threatening. Marcus Rothwell requests the honor of William Bellini's presence at a formal duel, to be held at the Riverside Club on October 28th at dawn. Terms: first blood or yield. Seconds to be named. Reply required within 24 hours. My hands shook as I read it, then read it again, trying to make the words mean something different than what they clearly stated. Marcus wanted to fight William. Over me. like I was some prize to be won through violence. I was still staring at the letter when William returned home, his expression shifting from relaxed to deadly serious the moment he saw my face. What happened? Wordlessly, I handed him the letter. His jaw tightened as he read, something dark and dangerous settling over him like a cloak. That idiot. He can't be serious. Dueling is illegal. It's archaic. It's within his rights, William finished grimly. In our world, when a man feels he's been wronged, when honor demands satisfaction, this is how it's settled. Quietly, privately, with seconds as witnesses. This is insane. I grabbed the letter back, as if destroying it would make the challenge disappear. You can't actually fight him. What if he hurts you? What if you hurt him? What if... Breathe, Tesoro. William pulled me against his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. I'm not going to let anything happen to either of us. This is theater, political posturing. Rothwell needs to save face after being humiliated. This gives him that opportunity. By potentially killing you? It won't come to that. His hand stroked through my hair. First blood means exactly that. First wound ends the fight. Usually a scratch on the arm or shoulder. Very civilized, very controlled. And it allows Rothwell to say he defended his honor while minimizing actual damage. You sound like you've done this before. His silence was answer enough. How many times? I pulled back to look at him. How many men have challenged you to duels? 3. His expression was carefully neutral. All over business disputes. All ended with minor wounds and matters considered settled. This is no different. This is completely different. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. This is about me, William. About the fact that you took me from him. I didn't take you from anyone. His voice hardened. You chose me. You wore blue. You walked away from Rothwell of your own free will. He doesn't get to claim ownership after the fact. Then refuse the challenge. I can't. He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. If I refuse, it looks like cowardice, like I'm afraid of him. It would undermine everything, make me look weak in front of every family in Chicago. I have to accept, Tesoro. There's no other option. There's always another option. But even as I said it, I knew he was right. In his world, there were rules. Lines that couldn't be crossed without consequences. And refusing a formal challenge was apparently one of them. I need to name a second, William said, already pulling out his phone. And we need to set terms. Make sure Rothwell understands that this is purely ceremonial, that actual injury isn't the goal. What if he doesn't care about that? What if he actually wants to hurt you? William's smile was cold. Then he'll learn a painful lesson about the difference between wanting to hurt someone and being capable of it. The confidence in his voice should have reassured me. Instead, it made me more nervous. Because I'd seen flashes of what William was capable of. The controlled violence beneath the civilized surface. The man who'd built his reputation on being his father's enforcer. If Marcus pushed him, if the duel became more than theater, I was terrified of what might happen. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of preparations that felt surreal. William named Nico, his cousin, as his second. Terms were agreed upon. A pays rather than pistols, first blood, physician present. Everything designed to minimize actual harm while satisfying honor. But none of it made me feel better. The night before the duel, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing William injured, bleeding, Marcus standing over him in triumph. Or worse, William standing over Marcus, having done something that couldn't be undone. Come here. William's voice was soft in the darkness, his arm reaching out to pull me against him. I can feel you thinking from across the bed. I can't stop imagining all the ways this could go wrong. It won't. You can't know that. I can. His hand found mine, bringing it to rest over his heart. Feel that? Steady, strong. That's not the heartbeat of a man who's worried about tomorrow. I've trained for this, Tesoro. I know how to fight, how to win, how to end things quickly and cleanly. That's not reassuring. He huffed a quiet laugh. What would be reassuring? You refusing to go, us running away together. Anything other than you deliberately walking into danger because of some archaic code of honor. Honor isn't archaic in my world. His voice was gentle but firm. It's the foundation everything else is built on. If I refuse this challenge, if I show weakness, it doesn't just affect me. It affects my family, my business, everyone who depends on me. I can't do that. Even for me, especially for you. He rolled to face me, his eyes visible in the darkness. If I backed down now, it would paint a target on your back. Every rival, every enemy would see you as the weakness they can exploit. By facing Rothwell, by winning, I make it clear that challenging me over you is a losing proposition. It protects you, Rebecca. That's what this is really about. I hadn't thought of it that way. Hadn't considered that refusing might put me at greater risk than accepting. I hate this, I whispered. I hate that loving you means watching you walk into danger. And I hate that being with me puts you in this position. His thumb traced my cheekbone. But we knew it wouldn't be easy. We knew there would be complications. This is one of them. Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll come back to me. I promise. He kissed me softly. I have too much to live for to be careless. I have you. I clung to that promise as morning came too quickly, as William dressed in simple dark clothing suitable for fighting, as we drove to the Riverside Club in tense silence. The club was a private establishment, members only, where Chicago's elite conducted business that couldn't be done in public. We were led to a private courtyard where Marcus waited with his own second, both men dressed similarly to William. Marcus looked older than I remembered, his face drawn and tight, with an emotion I couldn't quite identify. When his eyes met mine, something flickered there. Not love or even desire, but wounded pride. Mrs. Bellini, he said formally, I apologize that you have to witness this. Then don't do it, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Walk away. There's no shame in choosing peace over violence. There's every shame in letting another man take what's mine without consequence. I was never yours, Marcus. I was a business arrangement you agreed to, nothing more. His jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. The seconds were discussing final terms, the physician checking both men to ensure they were fit to fight. Everything felt choreographed, ritualistic, surreal. Last chance to yield, William said as they took their positions, épées in hand. Walk away now, and we'll consider honor satisfied. Never. Marcus's voice was hard. You took her from me. That requires an answer. I took nothing. She chose. Because you manipulated her, charmed her, made her think you were something you're not. She'll see eventually. When she realizes what kind of monster you really are, she'll regret ever choosing you. If that happens, William said quietly, it will be her choice to leave, just like it was her choice to stay. But you... His voice dropped to something dangerous. You will never touch her again. Not now. Not ever. Are we clear? We'll see. Marcus raised his épée. On guard. What followed was nothing like the romantic duels in films. It was fast, brutal, efficient. Both men clearly trained, but William moved with a fluidity that spoke of countless hours of practice, of muscle memory so deep it was instinctive. Marcus was competent, but angry, his attacks aggressive but uncontrolled. William parried easily, deflecting, redirecting, never fully committing to an attack of his own. It was clear within the first minute that he was better, faster, more controlled, and he was holding back. "Fight me properly," Marcus shouted, frustration evident. "Stop toying with me." "I'm trying not to hurt you," William replied calmly, deflecting another wild swing. "Yield, Rothwell. There's no shame in acknowledging when you're outmatched." "Never!" Marcus lunged, overextending, leaving himself open. William could have ended it there, could have struck for first blood and claimed victory. Instead, he stepped aside, letting Marcus stumble past. "Yield," he said again. "Don't make me do something we'll both regret." But Marcus was past reason. He spun, attacking with renewed fury, his épée flashing in the early morning light. The seconds watched tensely, the physician ready to intervene. And then Marcus made a mistake. His foot caught on an uneven paving stone. His balance shifted, and William, reacting on instinct, moved to prevent him from falling directly onto his own blade. The épées tangled. Metal scraped against metal. And when they separated, a thin line of blood appeared on Marcus's forearm. First blood. The duel was over. Marcus stared at his arm, then at William, something like relief warring with humiliation on his face. "You could have ended this in the first minute." "I could have." William lowered his épée. "But that wasn't the point. The point was giving you your chance to save face, to prove your courage, to satisfy honor. Now it's satisfied. We're done here." "And her?" Marcus's eyes moved to me. "You'll make her happy? Give her the life she deserves?" "I'll spend every day trying," William said simply. "That's all any man can do." Marcus nodded once, then allowed the physician to tend his wound. The seconds conferred, declaring the duel properly concluded, honor satisfied on both sides. It was over. William crossed to me, épée still in hand, and I threw myself into his arms despite the audience, despite the impropriety, despite everything. "You're okay," I breathed against his neck. "You're safe." "I told you I would be." His arms tightened around me. "I keep my promises, Tesoro." "You held back. You could have ended it so much faster." He needed to feel like he'd fought, like he'd given his best effort. Taking that from him would have been cruelty for its own sake. He pulled back to look at me. "I'm not interested in humiliating defeated enemies. I'm interested in ending threats and moving forward. Is it really over? Will he leave us alone now?" "He will. This was his last card to play. Now that it's been played, now that honor has been satisfied, he has no more claim. You're mine, Rebecca. Completely, legally, and now publicly proven. No one can dispute it anymore." As we drove home, the sun fully risen and the nightmare finally over, I realized what William had really done. He hadn't just won a duel. He'd given Marcus a way to step back with dignity, had minimized harm while maximizing the statement being made. I was William Bellini's wife, and heaven help anyone who tried to come between us. "I love you," I said quietly, watching his profile as he drove. "More every day." "I love you too, Tesoro." His hand found mine, our fingers intertwining. "Thank you for trusting me, for believing I'd come back to you." "Always," I promised. "I'll always believe in you." 3 months later, I stood in our art studio, painting the garden where we'd first met. But this time, I included both of us in the image. Him in shadow, me in light, the space between us crackling with possibility. William found me there, wrapping his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder as he studied the painting. "It's beautiful," he murmured. "You've captured it perfectly." "It's not finished yet." I leaned back against him. "I need to add color to you, bring you out of the shadows." "Is that what you've been doing these past months? Bringing me into the light?" "Maybe. I turned in his arms. Or maybe you've been bringing me into the dark, meeting in the middle, where neither of us has to be someone we're not. I like that. He kissed me softly. Meeting in the middle, building something that's ours. Speaking of building, I paused, gathering courage. I have something to tell you. His eyes sharpened, reading something in my expression. What is it? I'm pregnant. The words hung between us, weighted with possibility and promise, and the future we were creating together. William's face went through a dozen emotions: shock, joy, fear, determination, before settling on something that looked like wonder. A baby, he breathed. We're having a baby. Yes. My hand moved to my still flat stomach. Are you happy? I know we haven't discussed children, and it's so soon, and... He kissed me, deep and thorough and full of promise. I'm terrified, he admitted when we broke apart. I'm thrilled. I'm grateful. I'm everything to Sorrow. A baby. Our baby. Our baby, I agreed, and felt the last piece of my old life fall away. I wasn't Rebecca Windsor anymore. Wasn't the obedient daughter, or the convenient fiancée, or the woman who lived behind glass. I was Rebecca Bellini, wife to a complicated, dangerous, devoted man, future mother to his child, partner in building something real in a world that valued power over honesty. And I'd never been happier. Come on, William said, pulling me toward the door. We need to celebrate. We need to plan. We need to just be, I interrupted, pulling him to a stop. Just for today, can we just be? Just us. Just this moment. Just this happiness before everything gets complicated again. He studied me for a long moment, then smiled. A real smile. The one I'd learned meant he was letting down his guard. Yes, he agreed. Just us. Just this. Just now. And in the studio filled with unfinished paintings and morning light, we built another perfect moment to add to the collection we were creating. A life made of choices and bravery, and the terrifying freedom of being truly seen. I'd run into a garden to escape one man and found another in the shadows. And somehow, impossibly, I'd found exactly what I'd been searching for all along.